Hey everybody, David the AI Guide here, and we're back with another episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Also, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you to my new subscribers. And finally, I have a new book on Amazon. Check it out. It's called The Beginner's Guide to AI. It's a great, very quick read summary of how AI is being used today in about 12 different industry sectors. So you can see exactly where AI is today already in that book. So I hope you enjoy it. Today we're finishing our book, AI book summary. Dr. Kai-Fu Lee, AI Superpowers, US and China. So the second half of the book really focuses on several themes. The first theme is that severe disruption is coming. It's beyond doubt. And the only question is, how exactly will this severe disruption manifest? And Kai-Fu Lee is very thoughtful and talks about a lot of different possibilities and different perspectives on this issue. There's basically a dystopian camp and then an optimistic camp about AI, and then there's the truth is usually somewhere in the middle, he says. But he says he really started thinking about all this because he had a personal crisis of his own. He had a cancer diagnosis. It was severe. He ended up pulling through it, but living through that changed his perspective. And so he started to really think about what's important. My story is similar, not in terms of having had cancer, but after I started going to AI conferences and workshops and seeing how it was being used and what the development path for AI is, I started really worrying about my kids and you younger people and everybody else's kids. This is a serious issue. And Kai-Fu Lee realized, hey, I'm concerned about my own kids. So he talks about how the US and China will separate themselves from the rest of the world in terms of AI use, AI sophistication. But he does go on to say that the impact of AI will hit globally. You see, AI is software, right? And software doesn't care about cities, states, countries, doesn't care about that. Software knows no boundaries like that. Those are artificial human inventions. So the impact of AI will be global, and the job loss impact of AI will be global. And furthermore, humanity is starting to spread AI out into the solar system now, and eventually, I suppose, the galaxy. What do I mean by that? I mean that basically every NASA satellite launched from this point forward will have AI built into it for course correction and selection, for cleaning up photographs, and videos and making them sharper, for a bunch of different things. So AI is spreading globally already, of course, and it's now spreading out into our solar system, courtesy of human beings. And so this path that we are on is one that merits thought. And we can see the beginnings of that happening. We've talked about it in earlier videos. Regulation in Europe to control how AI is used so that it cannot be used for harm vis-a-vis human beings. Well, it's very interesting about this book because this book came out in 2018. I suppose it was written in 2017 and 2018. It takes a while to write a book like this, I can tell you. A lot has changed that was different when this book came out. So one of the major differences in China and the US is the way that competition works. So competition here in the US is structured and guided not so much by antitrust considerations anymore. That's pretty much been put to the side by the last few American government administrations. But it is, America takes seriously intellectual property. So in other words, if I am Facebook, I can't copy what Instagram is doing. I have to buy Instagram. That's not the way it works in China. In China, you can copy anyone. And what happened is, as he explains it, a sort of gladiatorial ring of very cutthroat competition that resulted in a few super softwares coming out. That's WeChat, Alibaba, Baidu, and there's others. But the point is that the competition, whether in the US or China, has resulted in a few dominant players. And what this is creating in AI is the haves and have-nots. I did a very short video recently, one of my shorts, about a proposal to create a national computing cloud to give small universities and small research outfits the tools they need to compete with the major companies ruling technology in the United States and China, and these huge universities like Stanford, like Harvard, like MIT, etc. So there's sort of unequal competition now, because to be successful at AI, you have to have massive computing power and massive data. And I said towards the end of part one of my video that fulee posits that China will surpass the US in AI for one major reason, and that reason is data. So the approach in China to AI has been totally different than here in the US in two respects. One is that US tech companies just stay clean and stay tech companies and only stay focused on their software or softwares, versus in China, they have an online to offline business model, and that includes AI, where they create the software, but then they extend that into the real physical world. So a perfect example of that is food delivery, right? There's companies both here and in China that create software for food delivery or grocery delivery or whatever it is. But in China, those same companies go into actual physical delivery of the goods, whereas here in the US, different companies handle the physical component. So because in China, the software companies are in the physical world, they get much, much, much more data. And that data is the most valuable thing in the world now. And that's why China, because its population is 3 to 4 times that of the United States, and you've got this extension from software into the physical world, they're going to be the kings of data, if you will. So the final thing I want to talk about is what we focus on here, which is making AI human. And Fulee has a very interesting discussion about that. He acknowledges massive job losses are coming. He's a smart man. I think anyone who is involved with AI at all understands massive job losses are coming. The only debate is, what is the fallout of that going to be? And Fulee ended up being a little more optimistic, and he talks about how there are some jobs that are going to be completely automated, like we talk about, because they're subject to easy and rapid full automation, and others that really still need to involve human beings, and those will be much later in the curve. And so that sort of supports what we've been saying here in terms of certain jobs will still require the human touch. He mentions nursing. I've talked about nursing. And so there are jobs that will be relatively protected, and that's what we're here to do. Give you tools and resources that we have started developing and will continue to develop to prepare you for the massive job losses that are coming. One of the things he talks about in AI Superpowers is UBI. We have a different opinion on that one. He doesn't really support UBI. I think it's inevitable because there's some people who just will not be able to be retrained and they're going to have to be supported. But what he does talk about is AI is bringing a critical risk to fruition, which is such large stratification in society between the haves and have-nots that it becomes destabilizing and threatens humanity. And he talks extensively about that in this book. This is a risk. This is a very real risk. And this is why there needs to be thoughtful discussion of these subjects, both regulation and what are we going to do for human beings when this really hits, which I have said, 2025 to 2030, massive job losses. Very great book. I highly, highly recommend it. I will be doing occasionally other book summaries like this, but this is in 20 minutes I gave you what takes quite a bit of reading. Thank you to Dr. Fulee for writing this book and giving us this global perspective of technology, which he uniquely has, almost uniquely, because he has lived and worked in both of the two countries that are leading the AI wave. So he has a very interesting perspective. So thank you to him. And please check out my book on Amazon, The Beginner's Guide to AI, link below. Also, free AI resource to help you start learning about AI that you're going to have to know in a few years to do your work. And there you have it. So hopefully you'll take advantage of this resource. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.